cyborgs on a field, and there will not be real players. That's what I mean. The Jets. I think the Jetsons had that on there, but I think that's what's going to happen. Of all the sports in the world, football is the one I think that'll happen to first, and maybe the only one, because there's so many injuries and things like that. You know, soccer will never go that way because soccer is an international sport, and injuries in soccer are not like football. Baseball, basketball, hockey, all fine. American football is the one that's going to go to that esports type of deal.
It'd be interesting. I don't know what I'd think of that.
Well,
I hope it happens when I'm super old.
Well, yeah,
because
then when we're super old, we'll be rambling about how in the old days people actually hit people,
right?
And it wasn't on a remote control.
Yeah.
You know? I was hoping it would happen before I was like 30, because I was such a big video game guy. Like, I'd love to own a team of animatronic dudes and be like, hey, you know, whatever, you know, what's going on? And instead of getting a concussion, you know, they get their arm ripped off because they're robots. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, that's just the way it is, you know. But in closing here, guys, I think we've spent enough of your time. Again, this is our first podcast, so we don't really have any social media yet. We don't really have any kind of following yet. I hope somebody listens to this and appreciates it, and even if you hate us or you like us, you continue to listen on a weekly basis. We're going to try to do this on a weekly basis. Dave and I are both married dudes with children, so we have other things going on. So it might not be weekly. We're going to try to do weekly. And we're going to try to talk as much soccer as we possibly can, and also interject some other things that we've interjected in this podcast, like talking about Toys R Us, other things. And we'll probably be drinking at most of these, and it's going to be a good time. Dave, you have anything else to say?
Not a whole lot. I do want to say, if I had to pick a player of the game today,
go ahead.
It would be Rasmus Schuler. He was the guy, he was one of the Scandinavian signings that we all thought was going to crap out, and they ended up loaning him out for the last half of the season. And, he was just really good today.
Yeah.
He had a really good game against San Jose. Last week, he was fine. If I were to give him a 1 out of 10, I'd say he was a 6 last week. Mm-hmm. But this week, he was constantly there. Moving forward, not so much.
Yeah.
But he's kind of in that role right now that Fernando will eventually take over.
Sure. Where
he sits back as more of a defensive midfielder. And every single time that Chicago moved forward, he was there. It was incredible. The number of times that he had stopped an attack, or just stopped progress, or just kind of got in the way.
Sure,
was incredible. Like we said, the score line was 2-1, and I haven't even looked at the stats. And I don't think Chicago had, more than maybe, I was going to say 6 shots on goal. They had 5.
Wow.
They had a total, that game was really even. 11 shots each, 5 on target each. Wow. Minnesota controlled possession 57%.
Yeah.
I think Schuler had a lot to do with that. It was all of those stats. I think he was just in the right place at the right time. And it's almost kind of sad. I've been wanting a defensive midfielder all offseason, all last season. And now we have one, and he'll probably, I bet he might get a start next week.
Probably should.
Or at least minutes next week.
Yeah.
And here Schuler is, and I'm like, man, it's kind of sad because Schuler's saying, hey, come on.
Yeah.
I can do this.
Yeah.
If I had to pick a man of the match, that was him. Overall, really, really good game. I'm excited as much as I am scared for next week.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing because last year I was just scared.
Mm-hmm.
It's in New York, so obviously that makes it a little more terrifying. But yeah, I'm pretty excited for this year. And I'm excited for this podcast.
Well, I'm excited for this podcast too. And so we just had something new happen that will integrate into every podcast. At the end of the podcast, Dave will give a man of the match and a little preview of next week's game. So tie it all up. So, anything else you want to say, Dave? I think we're good.
No, have we said the name?
We said the name first. It is the Loonacy Podcast. You know, that might change. We don't.
It might change.
Might change. We call it Loonacy for Minnesota United. But
I have no creativity, so.
I have a little bit.
Loonacy sounded fine to me.
So, if you're listening to this, thanks for listening to us. This is Dave, or this is Tony and Dave signing off. We'll talk to you guys next week.
All right, see ya.